Hello, everyone. This is Maria Horat, your home relocation expert, and thank you for joining me. Today, I have a very important topic to discuss, and it's how the rising homeowners insurance premiums are tampering housing affordability in states like California. Last week, there was a town hall meeting on homeowners insurance by the Homeowners Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara. And while I believe the commissioner is working in trying to find viable solutions to address the relentless rising costs of homeowners insurance premiums, there were a few things that caught my attention that I wanted to tell you about. And also, I want to break down the issue of the rising costs of homeowners insurance into something called the Hegelian dialect, which seems to be the approach used by governments and special interest groups on almost every issue we are confronted by in our society. But before we dive in, I wanted to remind you that if you're planning on relocating, whether that is across town or nationwide, let me assist you in finding a trusted realtor that will help you sell your home with confidence or buy your dream home at no cost to you. Just click on the link below to begin the process, and I will personally be in touch with you. For some background, before we go over, let me explain what the Hegelian dialect is. It is a philosophy or idea by George Hegel, who was a German philosopher during the late 1700s and early 1800s, who denied that there is such a thing as absolute truth. It was Hegel's view that all things unfold in a continuing evolutionary process whereby each idea or quality called the thesis brings forth its opposite, the antithesis, for the interaction. And then a third state emerges in which the opposites are integrated, overcome, and fulfilled into a richer and higher synthesis. Hegel believed that this process has a life of its own, in an evolutionary sense, but since the days of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, it has been used as a guided process towards a desired end. In more simple terms, novel author Brad Thor provides the following definition. Quote, the Hegelian dialect is a psychological tool used to manipulate the masses. In this case, you create a problem, wait for the reaction, and then offer a solution. What people historically fail to realize, though, is that those offering the solution are the same people who caused the problem in the first place. They also fail to realize that no matter what the solution is, it always ends up providing its creator with more power. So let's talk about the problem, which is the first step of the Hegelian dialect, and that is climate change. This is the biggest problem identified as the cost of rising homeowners insurance premiums, among other problems affecting our lives. The California Department of Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara stated that climate change is affecting every aspect of our lives, including home buying and insurance cost. The United Nations declared climate change a global emergency. Banks and lending institutions are committed to transition to net zero goals by eliminating carbon footprint as a sustainable solution to climate change. The World Economic Forum just held a summit on 2022 to focus the world's attention on the steps necessary to avert catastrophe done by climate change and so forth. We know that the climate has been changing since the beginning of the world, and yes, waste and pollution are also major contributors to environmental disasters. Unfortunately, solar and wind powers don't really pose a very sustainable solution to humanity as of now. In addition, much has been done to change the climate through experimental projects using nanotechnology and to develop cloud seeding materials. I want to point out to this article by MIT, which reveals that Dr. Su explains that the cloud seeding material used today have been around for many decades. The information and techniques are out of date and their effectiveness is not well understood. So while they're using this so-called groundbreaking research project to make clouds and change the weather, there is still very little known about its effect and impact on the environment. So without delving too much into the whole climate change topic, let's talk about problem number 2, inflation. Inflation has been driven by easy money printing policies by the Federal Reserve Bank, monetary policy called quantitative easing, and the fiat currency, which is backed by debt instead of precious metals. In short, since the founding of the Federal Reserve Bank in 1913, the dollar has lost 96% of its value and more prone to inflation since it became fiat money in 1971. Also, the impact of inflation on the construction sector cannot be underestimated. And I want to share with you a couple of articles that talk about these. Okay, just wanted to bring to your attention a couple of articles. This one here, inflation and the impact on the construction sector and how rising prices are affecting construction companies. Rate of inflation are increasing rapidly on many developed economies, and construction companies feeling the effects, not only essential to materials and skilled labor, significantly more expensive, but supply chains pressures and shortages are making it harder to secure needed construction materials. So we know that COVID, the whole pandemic thing, affected the supply chain. Lumber, steel, and many other materials critical for construction projects have experienced skyrocketing increases in pricings, while the root of the problem was supply chain disruptions due to COVID. New challenges, including geopolitical risks, continuing to put pressures on pricing, and an increase in government-led infrastructure activity is further increasing demand for construction material. Also wanted to share with you this article, higher material prices here to stay. More upward pressure on the cost of building products will lead to a permanent shift in prices, according to construction industry sources. Some of the prices that have remained elevated and since 2020 have been wood, which has increased by 16% in 2023. Steel, 22% increase, concrete and masonry, 15%, electrical conduit, 12%. Insulation, 11%. So let's talk about the next problem, insurance scores. California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara also said that insurance companies have, for the most part, been keeping customers in the dark about the scores or fire ratings that they give each individual parcel. However, a new regulation requires insurance companies to provide you with a fire score, so that you are able or have the opportunity to assess the fire risk and do something about it. He said that more transparency has been achieved. However, other scoring systems are used. Some of them are considered proprietary or confidential information, so some insurance companies don't disclose it. But property access to fire department, proximity, slopes, nuisances such as swimming pools, trampolines, and certain types of animals are also included in the scores. There is also an insurance score, which is determined by combining the homeowner's credit score, claim history, and other factors, which these other factors might include the ones we just mentioned. But personal debt on the rise, and as more and more people struggle financially and rack on more credit card debt, those credit scores are impacted negatively, resulting in lower insurance scores, which in turn results in higher premiums. The next problem that's significant is the insurance fraud. And according to the FBI, insurance industry consists of more than 7,000 companies that collect over $1 trillion in premiums each year. This massive size of the industry contributes significantly to the cost of insurance fraud by providing more opportunities and bigger incentives for committing illegal activities. So let's talk about the reaction, which is the next step of the Hegelian dialect. Or the effect of these causations. As we know, homeowners insurance premiums have increased dramatically. And as of 2020, premiums have increased by 59% over the last decade across the country, not just California. Meanwhile, the California FAIR Plan seeks nearly 50% hike from the California Department of Insurance, which, by the way, I should also mention that the so-called FAIR Plan, which is more like an unfair plan, since it was created by the governor and legislature, is actually a private association of whose day-to-day operations are controlled by private insurance companies. So you might have thought all along that it was the state running it, and it's not. It's a group of insurance companies running this unfair fair plan. So obviously, while mortgage payments might be fixed, you might have the same mortgage payment for 30 years. The astronomical increase of insurance premiums is decreasing housing affordability for current homeowners and keeping homeownership out of reach for many buyers. As a result, we're starting to see an increase in foreclosure activity, which is up 15% from last year, with California leading at 14,217 foreclosures. So I want to show you, just to prove this latest point, this article by Bankrate. Okay, so high insurance rates push homeownership further out of reach. This article states that the headlines about the housing market spotlight home prices, which are failing but still high, and mortgage rates, which have skyrocketed. Both are important factors in the affordability equation, but there's another consideration that affects home buyers just as directly, and that's home insurance prices. This crucial cost has been quietly soaring, particularly in areas prone to natural disaster. I heard the term environmental risk or environmental sensitive areas. So areas, for example, I'm in Northern California, in Tuolumne County, we are surrounded by the national forest, so we're considered an environmentally risky area up here. So here's how it all breaks down for home buyers. Home prices are high. The median nation price is more than $375,000, according to the National Association of Realtors. Mortgage rates are also high, hovering around 6.5% as of May, which helps keep homeownership out of reach for many will-be buyers. And rising homeowner insurance rates are making the affordability problem worse, especially in natural disaster-prone areas. So let's talk about the solution, or the solution that we're being presented. So first of all, I just want to say that despite the $2.7 billion that have been pumped into the wildfire resilience programs, or so-called resilience programs, over the past 3 years in the state of California, homeowner insurance premiums continue to rise. And not only that, but the two largest homeowner insurance companies decided not to write any more policies. The California Insurance Department Commissioner, Ricardo Lara, said that it is imperative to bring fire risk down because climate change, again, this is the single most important problem that they say is causing homeowners insurance premiums to go up. He said that it's imperative to bring the fire risk down because climate change is changing every aspect of our lives. He also said that California has the largest insurance market in the nation and the fourth in the world, and that despite that the two of the largest companies are not writing new policies, there are over 100 other companies providing coverage. As part of the solution, he also said that we need a roadmap to build and rebuild better and making homes more resilient to fires. So with rising building costs, is going to help you do just that, I'm sure. Homeowners need to continue to do their due diligence, he says, for fire clearance around their homes, and that a new regulation will require insurance companies to provide a discount for homeowners who upgrade their homes. So if you invest a certain amount of money getting a new roof, double pane windows, and doing a lot of improvements to your home, you might get lucky and get a discount on the homeowner's insurance. The commissioner also mentioned that there needs to be more choices for people living in environmentally sensitive areas. Again, in Northern California, in Tuolumne County, we're surrounded by the national forest, so we're considered an environmentally sensitive area. I need to develop an action plan to cut the red tape and make insurance benefits better, such as offering relocation versus rebuilding with no penalty. In other words, they are looking to basically be able to give you the insurance benefits at no penalty for you to relocate. We've seen that happen in the city of Paradise, California, where so many people needed to be relocated and could not rebuild after the devastating wildfire. So I want to bring to your attention the California Department of Insurance website. This website says wildfire survivors are now covered by new insurance protections. This was released on July 27, 2021. So as wildfires once again threaten Californians, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara is alerting consumers to new insurance protections in effect for the summer wildfire season, the increased payouts and evacuation benefits for wildfire survivors. These reforms are the results of input received from past wildfire survivors that Commissioner Lara championed in the state legislature. So basically, I want to just go down here to the second point. Residents under mandatory evacuation for wildfire, even if they suffer no damage to their home, will receive additional living expenses for at least 2 weeks with extensions for good cause. Insurance companies cannot restrict additional living expenses if a home is rendered uninhabitable due to wildfire or other covered peril, even if the damage is not to the property itself. This addresses the problems after recent major fires when insurance companies deny benefits even though damaged power and water lines made homes uninhabitable. An insurance company might provide a reasonable alternative remedy that addresses the property conditions, such as portable generator in the case of down power lines or a portable water source. So those are just a couple of points on that. I welcome you to take a look at it yourself, and it's right on the California Department of Insurance website. Okay. Finally, I wanted to talk about the UN, what the UN Agenda 2030 has offered to the world as a solution to climate change through something called sustainable development. You might have heard about it, but we can take a look at this map of the United States taken from the United Nations Convention of Biological Diversity. Basically, according to the UN, the way to address climate change is, in addition to eliminating carbon footprint, is by closing, quote, environmental sensitive areas, which comprise about 50% of the United States, mostly rural areas. Normal use areas are available to people, will be available to people in the urban areas. So let's take a look at the map here. And this is a simulated reverse and corridor system to protect biodiversity. And this was taken from the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. And it has basically everything in red are the core reserves and corridors where there will be little or to non-human use, according to this plan of the 2030 agenda, which we used to be called 2021. And the green use, light green, which you can barely see, would be considered the normal use. So, for example, let's take a look at California. I live in Northern California. As I mentioned, I live in Tuolumne County, which is basically all this red area, part of this red area over here, consider an environmental sensitive area under this plan. Basically, this area will not be available for human use. So let me talk about these 2 ways. The solution that they have are a couple of ways that the plan will do if it takes in effect. One is the first step is called the Wildlands Network. As I mentioned, is a plan to eliminate human presence on at least 50% of the American landscape and to heavily control human activity on most of the rest of the American land by doing road closures, breaching dams policies, UNESCO World Heritage Sites adoptions, among other things. In addition, habitat protection is the most significant tool used by environmentalists through the Endangered Species Act. The Wildlands Network simply seeks to centralize all natural resources such as water and decisions under a bureaucratic direction. The second way, which you might have also heard, but it's important to make all these connections with everything that's going on, is smart growth. While human beings are removed from the rural land, so-called environmental sensitive areas, there will be a concentration in urban areas, which is those green areas that the map has. Through smart growth, the infrastructure is being created for a post-private property era. So basically, we talk about how people are, not being able to afford homes. And first of all, a lot of home buyers are being pushed out of the markets, and the homeowners are currently struggling to make their house payments, and foreclosures are up. So as we move towards a post-private property era in which human action is subject to a centralized government control. Furthermore, every aspect of human life will be controlled through the smart growth. Energy, water use, housing stock and allocation, population levels, public health, dietary regimens, education, resources, recycling, mobility restrictions, transportation. Basically, a typical day in an Orwellian society created by smart growth will consist of an individual waking up in her government providing housing unit, eating a ration of government subsidized foods purchased at a government grocery store, and that would be the typical life of the average person. I wanted to just show the actual Agenda 21, which is now called Agenda 2030, and you can look it up yourself as well. It will be a really good thing to not just take my word for as evidence, but you can take a look at it yourself. Actually, Freedom Advocates has a website, and they have links to all of these information from the Agenda 21, the UN. And you can also go to the UN website and take a look. Just type Agenda 20, UN 2030, and you'll find everything you need to know. So I hope we never find ourselves in an Orwellian society. It's important to be aware of how slowly but surely we're being led to a point of no return. And it's imperative that we push against these agendas, and knowing it is only the first step. I hope you could gain some insight from this video today, and please subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you.